And we're recording.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle. You're at the Helm developer call. Today is Thursday, September 6th, 2018. Welcome. Just for anyone who is new, we're going to go through the format real quick. The format of the meeting is as follows. We will have announcements followed by stand-ups from the core maintainers and then stand-ups from anyone in the community who wishes to share what they're working on. Then we'll have some discussion topics. We have a few lined up today. If you have more discussion topics, feel free to add them to the agenda. Or we will ask at the beginning of that section. After that, we'll do assignments, which we always almost forget to do, but never actually forget. All right, so does anybody have announcements? Farina, do you have an announcement around governance?
Well, I guess it's technically not closed out yet for the election period, but the votes, are there enough votes in that the new governance has been accepted? There are enough votes in to accept it at this point, even though the window is still open until 5 p.m. Pacific time today. So people can still vote if they want, but we do have the votes. And so I guess that's the only announcement. And we'll have elections coming up here in the next few weeks. And details on that will be posted via a blog post and some emails tomorrow after the election window has formally closed, or the governance acceptance window is formally closed.
Awesome, thank you. Does anybody else have any announcements? Kind of been a quiet week, huh? All right, we shall go into stand-ups. Taylor, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so for me this week, I got a little bit, I was mostly busy at a conference along with Fisher. So anyone in the community who's mad that the 211 PR, that was Fisher and I at a conference, and we were in charge of the 211 PRs. So we're getting through those. And I'll be doing some more of those this week. That's one of our discussion items. So I'll leave discussion about those PRs until then. So that's been me this week. I'll just be doing some more PRs. I hope to, in the next few weeks, start picking up some of the Helm 3 work as needed. Let's pass it on to Josh.
I am mostly exploring Helm login and authorization flows. So talking to Matt Farina and some people from Microsoft Containers team. Also put a presentation for Helm 3 that the Helm tweeted, so thanks for that. But there seems to be pretty good feedback on Lua and all these types of things. So that's it for me. Adnan?
So I just merged the Monocular 1.0 proposal, and my plan is to get started on that next week. That's all I really have for an update for this week. Let's see, Fisher.
Adnan, did you say you merged the Monocular 1.0 or created the Monocular 1.0 proposal?
I merged the proposal for it.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Yeah. Fisher.
All right. So this last week, again, like Taylor mentioned, Taylor and I were over at Open Source Summit North America. So we were like in between speaker sessions, in between sessions, we were kind of triaging the 2.11 list. And then when I came back, I was taking a look at some of the last longstanding PRs out there. The design of some of them were a little bit interesting in the fact that there were I think there were a couple of things that I wanted to make changes to, but they weren't necessarily something that I would want to ask the community to just like rebase for the third or fourth time to go and redo that. So I took the PRs, or I took the previous history and resubmitted new pull requests with the design changed. So there's 2 PRs that I have available for the 2.11 list, and then there's one from the community, which is the recursive build. I've added a discussion item at the end of the notes to talk about that one particular PR in general, but just those are the only, that's basically been my main priority for this last week in terms of Helm stuff. So this week, continuing working on that, and then if we can get those through, then we could do a 2.11 release and get those stuff out. Who has not gone? Josh, have you not gone yet?
Yeah.
You just didn't listen to me. Farina.
Okay, so I was doing some of the governance stuff this week and doing some write-ups around that. I was working on the chart testing image. We're getting ready for a 1.4 release here, and we were looking at where to stick it. And so I think we're actually not going to use Docker Hub. We're going to end up using Quay. Quay keeps the logs around metrics are important, right? So any project needs to gauge if stuff's used and how it's used. Quay gives us some decent metrics, but it only keeps it around for a month. So before I do the 1.4 release and stick it up on Quay in an automated manner, I actually want to write a quick tool that will pull the logs from Quay and stick them into object storage so we can have a long-term housing for the logs because Quay only keeps them around for like a month before it dumps them to S3, and then we don't have access to them anymore in the UI. So I just want to make sure we have them, but otherwise for a month back, they give us decent logs and the ability to have it for a long time, which is a lot nicer than Docker Hub. And then we can kind of gauge, is this really in use? How often is it being used? Those kinds of details. So for metrics, it's taking a little bit longer to get that out because I actually got to go write that tool along with about a half dozen other things. But that should be going in the next week or so. I feel like there was something else I was working on. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Has anybody not gone?
I don't think I've gone, and I don't know if anybody else can record.
I had none.
I don't
Wait,
know.
you already went because you talked about monocular. So
Yeah.
we're really just not listening. Has anybody else not gone?
Me.
Michelle, it's you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still working on the proposal for auto rollback or how to deal with if your upgrade fails and it partially completes. How do you fix issues like around that? So I'm still working on that. Work on that some more in the next few days. I know Adam's working on V3 stuff, but I'm not exactly sure, and he's not here today. But I think that concludes the core maintainers list. Does anybody from the community want to do a stand-up, introduce themselves, or chat about anything? Okay. We'll go on to discussion items. So there is a discussion item for the Helm 2.11 release. Fisher, I assume you put that on there, so I thought you mentioned that. So go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Yeah, so as I mentioned in stand-up, there's 3 pull requests left in the queue before we can cut off release. 2 of them are ready to go and just need a review for those. So if anyone could take a look at those would be fantastic, and then we can cut through that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up into the discussion list here was pull request number 4468. And 4468 is the pull request for doing the recursive Helm dependency build. There's some design questions, and there's some after playing around with it. So I played around with it yesterday and the day before, kind of getting some familiarity with Helm dependency build and that kind of system as well. And I saw that there was a couple of interesting design questions that hasn't necessarily been clarified, or that we're not sure if it's the right design to go forward with. But I'm wondering, that would basically be the only pull request out there that we are not 100% sure on the design for. So should we pull that out of the 2.11 milestone, given that we want to push forward with the Kubernetes 1.11 support and the other bugs that have been fixed out as well in the release, and then carry on the discussion towards a Helm 2.12. I'm wondering if anyone has any ideas or feedback on that, or
I don't have any objections. Like, that sounds like a good plan. I know people have been waiting for the Kubernetes version support, so we'll just it'd be great to get that out and those bug fixes, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I have another item on the doc about dependencies also, so it might be good to talk about.
Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, I can go into that. I don't think okay, so I think somebody from Slack is joining here, so let's move on to something else, and when he comes, we can talk more.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll come back to it. Does anybody want to follow up on Fisher's request for feedback?
Yeah, I think I will. It's dependency management, so I can jump in on this one.
Okay, cool. So you'll do that async?
Yeah, I'll get with him offline.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is regarding PR 4590. Was there a technical reason we used cmd.persistent flags in certain commands versus cmd.flags?
This I'm not sure. Does anyone know if there was any difference between the two?
I've looked this up before.
The difference between persistent flags is that any other command that's added underneath that command as a subcommand gets that flag inherited. And so that's generally when we use it as something like on a top level. Like we have a few of those at the top level that of course should be persistent flags because they're on everything, like Helm host and those things. But it shouldn't be used in a case when it's just going to be for that command unless you really want any future subcommands to inherit that flag.
Okay, actually, that's a good thing to know about. So I might actually have to go back to that pull request and kind of review the difference or where we're using persistent flags and where we're using regular flags and see if I made any changes there. Because I switched it over from all persistent flags to just the flags endpoint, which might, if it's a down or if it's an upstream command like Helm get, then it might break downstream commands like Helm get values. So that's good to know. Okay, thank you.
Sweet, thank you. Okay, so the next item is Josh, if you want to.
Yeah, I think Gintas is on the call now, or no, he's gone now. Anyway, there was some talk about basically, I think, caching dependencies. So the suggestion was a Maven-like system, and I can share the entire write-up that Gintas put, but it's basically if I'm installing the same chart across multiple, like a dependency chart across multiple different charts, do I really need to run Helm dep up every time? Or can I cache it somewhere in Helm home, and then basically because I have that chart, I can just source it locally instead of going to a repo? Has that ever been talked about before?
So, well, dep up is actually going to go do it's going to reevaluate your versions. So in your requirements log file, right, if you have, say, give me something between version 1.4 and 2, it's going to go reevaluate what's the latest version and rework out and then lock and pin your dependencies. And it'll also go ahead and deal with the whole situation of grabbing that dependent chart at that version, stick it in the chart.
Right, but let's say it looks at the local index and sees there isn't a later version than the one that you have cached. Then we're still going out to the remote to fetch the chart. So I think the suggestion is for faster builds and better dependency linking and stuff like that to basically check first in a cache. If it's not there, go somewhere else, kind of like an npm install.
I can see the value a little bit, but also isn't that a little bit of the use case of Helm fetch in a way? Like, couldn't Helm fetch essentially be the same use case where you're fetching down the chart and now you have a local cached version of that chart, which you can now
yeah, but how do you operate Helm fetch against requirements.yaml? Like, there's no, like, yeah, you can do that. But I guess the solution that he came up with was to spin up a repo, like a local repository, and then use references and requirements YAML so you can just run Helm dep up. So I don't know. It looks like he's on the call. I don't know if he can speak or not, but we can talk. I don't know.
Yeah, I get that you're trying to save like a network call. So like in that you like we just cache the index.yaml file, right? We
Right,
don't actually
exactly.
cache charts. So yeah, I can think of a few ways to do that. Is there a proposal or an issue that maybe I can comment on?
No, I'll talk with the individual that brought it up, and I'll share it in Slack and maybe have them do a GitHub issue so we can kind of talk more. But it might affect kind of the recursive. Not. It's kind of along the same.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part would be immutability. Do we guarantee or just assume that chart versions are immutable? So we say, oh, we've got it here already. Do we check the manifest or the digest against it?
I was thinking the digest. If you put the digest in your requirements lock or something.
But I mean, that digest is just to make sure the content didn't change. There's some little tricks and gotchas in there we'll need to go pay attention to. But I mean, I like the idea of having a local cache, whether it's opt-in or opt-out to have it for something else. For build systems, this would be really nice to say, oh, we already have it locally. We'll just grab it from here. I like that idea. Circle CI and all these places you can just grab it from. There's just going to be some gotchas in there. So I'd love to see an issue, and I know I'm, for one, I'm supportive of it. I like caching the stuff.
Did y'all talk about maybe hiding it behind a flag also? Like
yeah,
maybe like using opt-in. Okay, cool. Cool, yeah. So next step would be an issue. Anybody else have any comments, thoughts, or suggestions? Okay. I'll take silence as no. Right. Henry, as a newbie, have some questions about how the overall community works.
Yeah, hi. So, hi, I'm Henry. Myself and Martin Hickey, who I don't know is on, we're both from IBM. We just joined the community, and we're kind of hovering around for a bit. And as IBM started to use Helm a lot, we're happy that we're going to be contributing as much as we can to the community. Just FYI, I was core on OpenStack, Keystone. Martin has been in OpenStack and a few other places, Elastic and a few places like that as well. So we're kind of got a reasonable amount of open source behind us. And we're keen to get involved. So we've done a few little kind of posts and patches and that sort of stuff. So the first question is, how best for us to get involved? There aren't many kind of newbie starter bugs sitting around. We looked at those. How best can we get engaged? By reviewing stuff? Some of the V3 stuff, is it possible to look at what's going on so we can just review and track what's going on? How would one suggest we do this?
That's a really great question. And some people unmuted, so I guess I'll let them go first. Farina or Fisher, do you want to jump in?
Farina first, maybe.
I was just already unmuted. I'd never muted again, but I'll say something. Fisher, I'll let you go first since you have something in mind. I do have something here.
So the one thing that it's a little bit of an interesting spot right here to become, so there's the core maintainer. If you're interested in becoming like a core maintainer of the project, there was a little announcement that Matt Farina just made at the very beginning of this meeting where he mentioned that the Helm governance vote was just going through. So we're in this like weird state at the very instant where we transferred over from the Kubernetes organization over to the CNCF organization.
Yep.
And we just had to basically go through our governance, and we had to go and re-vote on that and all that. So we're kind of like in this weird transition period between the core, or to get new core maintainers. So with that in mind, there was that. But then in terms of actually getting interested in getting into the project, this is honestly going into these meetings and talking about that. This is probably the best way to get involved with what's going on. I think it's very much like we're just going through the issue list. Otherwise, I don't think there's any coordinated or concerted effort between any of us to really parallel things. It's just really kind of ad hoc.
And so, I mean, I come from the code is king philosophy, so we're keen to contribute as much as we can, either reviewing or, or code contributors. So, so we're myself and Martin Hickey is the other colleague. Feel free to put us in, use us to review stuff to start with as we learn, and we're happy to do so.
So I'll jump in here and add. So part of it is there's Helm 3, right? You brought up.
Yeah.
So Helm 2 started off in the early days of Kubernetes, and we built on the primitives of Kubernetes at the time. And there's been a lot of change in Kubernetes, but Helm has always said we're not going to break people's experience or backwards compatibility. We take some very seriously, and that's why Helm 3 is coming along. We can break that, but over time, and not breaking that, there's some things we've wanted to incorporate in, and we've layered on features. So if you look at the pipeline for Tiller rendering a chart to Kubernetes manifest, or if you look at the Helm template command doing it, it's actually separate code paths because it would break the API to try to clean that up before, and so it ended up in separate code paths. So right now we're kind of in a state where primarily Adam, who's not here today, is doing a massive core cleanup effort to clean up that centralized pipeline of workflow. It's particularly what's in the package folder in Helm 3. And so most of us are keeping hands off right now while he alters. Tiller's been ripped out already, and he's now fixing that workflow up there. And we're trying to get him, we're hoping he gets it done this month. And then we're going to start jumping in with a whole lot of other Helm 3 things. But for the moment, because so much is churning there, most of us are keeping our hands off of Helm 3. That will be changing soon, though. So that's going on. But after that, we can do stuff. Here, I just dropped a link in. Helm 3, what we're doing has actually been defined a lot in documentation. We thought it out ahead of time.
I had a look through that. Looks quite good. I get the idea of what we're trying to do there, so that looks interesting.
Oh, fantastic. So there's that's going on. The other big area that I would say is over on the chart side. We're actually going to be switching. We're going to be moving towards a Monocular 1.0 and running a chart search for publicly distributed charts. And so we're going to be teaching people how to operate their own hubs. And so we're not going to have the stable and incubator repos be this primary thing everybody goes to. We want a distributed setup, something maybe similar to Packagist in the PHP world, where you have a metadata hub, but you actually go to third parties to do stuff. We're going to be heading in that direction in the near future. We're actually working on some of that in the background. Adnan, who had to leave early, has been spearheading some of that. And so that's one of the other big things that's starting to go on right now, and we'll be picking up in the next month. Those are some of the big things. And if you had somebody who wanted to contribute in one of these areas or learn more, an easy thing is just to reach out to one of the people who's actively involved, one of the maintainers who's actively involved in saying, hey, I'm interested here. Can you help me on board into this? Because I know some of the places we don't have the best contributing documentation. But if somebody shows up, everybody here is incredibly friendly and willing to help send people in the right directions. So if you had a particular area of interest you want to dive into, ask about it and we'll connect you with the people.
Right.
So Farina, just to jump in here, if someone wanted to help with feature development on the distributed search ongoings, is that something that's open to contribute to right now, or is that something that Adnan is still kind of working on, because I know the proposal was just merged?
The proposal was just merged, but most of that work was already done. That's in the proposal over at Bitnami. And so he's going to go do some testing on it and upstream it. And so I'm not exactly sure how much is done, where tweaks need to be made. He would be the person who unfortunately had to go, but he's one of those people that we can always reach out to and ask. So if somebody wanted to contribute into that, we could link them up with Adnan and he'd figure out where they can get involved.
Okay, so more feature development, more kind of getting your hands on something that's smaller and growing, and it's going to be a really important thing, is as kind of that's the route that you want to go towards, like the monocular stuff. Historically, we've also had people kind of jump into the Slack channel, and the Helm users channel is like ripe with people asking questions about Helm, and sometimes we figure out that there are bugs because of that channel and the people who are kind of being really active in that channel. So that's a really good place to kind of jump in, just to get a lay of the land, kind of get a feel for what people are talking about and what people are thinking in the community, and what priorities are for the end users. So that's really important. We always need a lot of help because there are thousands of users in that channel. And that's actually where a lot of the core maintainers have gotten started. It's just for historical context there. Another place that we actually really need help, if you're less on the featured, you maybe aren't wanting to do more greenfield or like feature development, we always really need help triaging issues. So there's not a good way for people to like kind of just regular community members to pick up issues, because you can't like add labels or assign yourself. But if you just get on the thread and kind of say, hey, you know, I can look into this, I can maybe manually reproduce this bug, that helps so much. It's really hard to triage issues, especially since we just have like one person doing issues every week. Sometimes we can't predict that there's like an influx of issues that come in. So that's a great place to keep an eye on. And then through that, I find that I end up, when I do issue triaging, I end up fixing bugs and contributing, and it's a nice little pipeline. If you do want to focus on reviewing code, that's also super helpful. Doing manual tests of the pull requests and kind of giving feedback on design is always very helpful as well. Great. So the contributing doc, I linked the contributing doc in the chat.
Thank you.
So there's a lot of information that kind of just went out. I feel like we gave a lot as far as. So yeah, go ahead.
And last thing, I don't hold the call. So, I mean, obviously, I'm also very cognizant of different communities work different ways in terms of, so as we sort of submit code and want to work with the existing cores on getting reviews, is there a kind of process for doing that? We say hi on the, do we ping on the Slack channel? How is best to ensure we get stuff reviewed timely so we can get in, basically? What is the kind of etiquette, if you like, for that?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I don't think we have any formalized etiquette. You're welcome to ping people. Sometimes that helps, unfortunately.
And I know pinging is a dangerous thing. Sometimes double-edged sword.
I don't think it's been tabooed yet, so I think it's still safe right now. So okay. And we've had this conversation. It's fine. So yeah, feel free to ping people like on the GitHub thread or in Slack. I don't know if that was a dangerous thing to suggest, but you can ping me if you'd like.
It's okay, because we're just going to blame you, Michelle, if this starts getting out of control. It's totally fine. It's not his fault. It's yours. It's fine.
And I'll ping in my best British accent, so it must be polite.
That sounds good.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate the feedback. That's great. So you'll see us around, and we look forward to contributing. So.
Okay, and if you want to get in, Steph and I and somebody else, Radu, did kind of a walkthrough of how we triage issues once just on a Zoom call, and we've also paired several times. Like several of us have paired with community members on issues. So if you do want that, feel free to reach out, and we would be happy to get on a call and onboard you and kind of go through the process.
Thanks.
My pleasure. We're at time now, so let's go ahead and do assignments and hop off. Who wants to be moderator next week?
I'll try. I'll go.
Okay, who's I? Okay.
Sorry.
Josh?
Josh.
Cool. Who wants to do notes?
I can do notes next week, so
okay,
for sure.
Who wants to be the Sherpa? I'll be back in. Oh, yeah, sure, Steph. Any volunteers for Sherpa? Okay. I can volunteer as tribute. You can put my name down. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great week. See you next time. Bye.